Once upon a time, in a small village wrapped in the quiet embrace of green hills and golden fields, there lived an old lady. Her name had long been forgotten by many, for everyone simply called her Amma, meaning mother. She was very old. Her silver hair gleamed like moonlight. Her wrinkled face carried the soft imprints of 1,000 smiles, and her eyes sparkled with a calm kindness that seemed to understand everything. She lived alone in a small house made of clay and stone, shaded by a great banyan tree whose roots twisted through the earth like ancient veins. Her husband had passed away many years ago, and she had no children of her own. Yet, despite her loneliness, Amma's spirit was never broken. She was always smiling, always greeting everyone with warmth, whether it was the postman, the farmer, or a wandering child who had scraped his knee. People often wondered how she could remain so happy when life had given her so little. The truth was that she possessed something far more valuable than wealth. She had learned the secret of peace. In the village, life was hard. The men worked long hours in the fields, bending beneath the sun's relentless heat. The women carried water from the well, cooked, and cared for their families. Some seasons were kind, but others brought drought or illness. There were days when the crops shriveled before harvest, or when sickness spread through the huts, taking away the weak and weary. During such times, the villagers would often sit in worry and despair. But Amma was different. Each morning she swept her little yard, fed the sparrows that gathered near her doorstep, and sat under the banyan tree with her cup of tea, watching the world with a calm smile that seemed to understand everything. When people passed by with heavy hearts, she would call out, "Smile, my child. The sun still rises for you." Her words, though simple, had a strange power. They made people pause, breathe, and believe again, even if only for a moment. It was as though her calmness carried a kind of quiet strength that others could borrow. She became the gentle center of the village, a living symbol of hope. Whenever someone was in trouble, whether it was a lost goat, a broken cart, or a broken heart, they would go to Amma. She never offered money or miracles. Instead, she offered words, words that healed the mind and guided the heart. And through her, the entire village began to understand that happiness was not found in possessions or luck, but in how one chose to think. One hot afternoon, as the cicadas sang in the trees and dust hung in the air, a young woman named Rada came to Amma's house. Her eyes were swollen from crying, and her hands trembled as she held her shawl tightly around her shoulders. She had heard of the old woman's wisdom, and though she didn't believe in miracles, she came because she had nowhere else to go. Radha knelt before Amma and whispered, "I don't know what to do anymore. My husband went to the city to find work. It has been 3 months and he has not sent any money. My children are hungry, and I am scared." Amma looked at her gently. "Sit down, my child," she said, her voice soft like a lullaby. "Tell me, what do you think will happen?" Radha's lips quivered. I think he won't come back. What if he has forgotten us? What if he cannot find work? Everything is falling apart." Amma smiled faintly and shook her head. "You are letting fear fill your thoughts, my dear. When we think bad things, our heart becomes heavy and our days become darker. But when we think good things, even if nothing changes yet, our heart becomes lighter. And sometimes good things begin to happen." Radha frowned. "But how can I think good thoughts when my children are starving and I am alone?" The old woman smiled again, that same patient smile that never seemed to fade. She said, "Let me tell you a story. Listen with your heart, not your fears." And so Radha listened. Amma began to speak of another time, of another person. Once there was a poor man who had lost everything. He had no food, no home, no family. He sat by a river crying, thinking his life was over. An old woman came to him and asked, "Why are you crying?" The man said, "I have nothing left." The old woman smiled and said, "You still have the river, the trees, the sun, and your breath. Look around you. The world still gives you beauty. If you only think of what you don't have, you will never see what you do." Radha listened silently as Amma's voice carried the story like the wind through the banyan leaves. The poor man in the tale changed not because the world gave him more, but because he began to see differently. When Amma finished, she looked at Radha and said, "My child, your life will not change through magic. It will change when you change your thinking." Radha sat quietly, letting the words settle in her heart. She had come to the old woman expecting advice or help, perhaps food, perhaps money. But instead, she had been given something invisible yet powerful. She hesitated and asked softly, "Will my thinking really change my life?" Amma nodded. "Yes, my dear. When you wake up each morning, tell yourself, 'Today will be a good day.' It may not be perfect. You may still struggle. But when your mind is hopeful, your heart finds the strength to act. You begin to see possibilities where before you only saw problems."
Rada wiped her tears and said, "I will try." "That is the first step," Amma said warmly. "Do not wait for happiness to come. Create it. Even when you are tired, even when things seem hopeless, choose to think a good thought." Radha stood up, bowed her head in gratitude, and walked back home. The road was the same, dusty and uneven, but she felt different walking upon it. For the first time in months, her steps felt lighter. She looked at the sky, saw the clouds drift slowly, and whispered to herself, "Today will be a good day." Days turned into weeks. Radha worked hard. She rose early, cooked simple meals for her children, and tended to a small patch of vegetables near her home. Each time despair crept in, she remembered Amma's words, "Think good thoughts, and good will come." At first it felt forced, but soon it became a habit. Her smile returned. She began to laugh with her children again. The villagers noticed. "Radha seems different," they whispered. "What happened to her?" One evening, as she was cleaning the small lamp near her window, a letter arrived. It was from her husband. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside he wrote, "I have found work. I am sending money home soon. Forgive my silence. It took time to find my way." Tears of joy rolled down her face. She pressed the letter to her heart and ran to Amma's house. "He found a job," she cried. "He's sending money." Amma smiled, as calm as ever. "You see, my child, when you think positive, you invite good things into your life. The world listens to the song of your heart." Radha nodded, her heart full. It wasn't just luck, it was transformation. Her mind had changed, and with it, her destiny began to shift. News of Radha's change spread through the village like the scent of fresh rain. People began to talk about Amma's wisdom, the power of positive thinking. One by one, villagers who once walked with drooping shoulders began to visit the old lady under the banyan tree. A farmer came, worried about his barren field. A carpenter came, burdened by unpaid debts. A mother came, grieving her son's illness. To each of them, Amma gave the same advice, wrapped in her gentle voice. "Think good thoughts, my child, not because they will make problems vanish, but because they will make you stronger." Some were doubtful. How can thoughts change the world, they asked. But others tried and found that something subtle yet real began to shift. The farmer noticed that when he faced the fields with hope instead of despair, he found the energy to work harder. The carpenter discovered new customers because his friendly smile invited people in. The grieving mother found comfort in helping others, her pain slowly softened by kindness. The village began to transform, not through wealth or miracles, but through mindset. The air felt lighter, people greeted one another with warmth again. There was laughter where once there had been sighs. Even the children, sensing the adults' new energy, played freely, their laughter ringing through the narrow lanes. Amma continued to sit beneath the banyan tree, her shawl wrapped loosely around her shoulders, her eyes full of quiet pride. She knew that happiness was not something she had given them, it was something they had discovered within themselves. One evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, Radha returned to visit her once more. Amma, your words didn't just change my life, they changed the whole village. The old lady smiled. It was not my words, my dear, it was your belief. Words are seeds, they only grow when the soil of the heart is ready. That night, as stars filled the sky, Radha sat outside her home, watching her children sleep peacefully. The world was still the same, her husband was still far away, the field still uncertain, but she was different. She had learned to see beauty in imperfection, strength in struggle, and peace in patience. And that was enough. Years passed, and Amma grew older, her hair turned as white as snow, and her hands trembled as she held her teacup. Yet her spirit remained as radiant as ever. The banyan tree had grown even larger, its branches sheltering generations of villagers who came to her for comfort. When she finally passed away one quiet morning, the entire village mourned. People from every home came to lay flowers beneath the banyan tree. There were tears, but also smiles, because Amma had left them something far greater than sorrow. She had left them wisdom. Her words lived on in their hearts. Whenever someone faced hardship, another would remind them, remember what Amma said, think good thoughts. It became the village's quiet prayer, a mantra whispered across generations. Radha, now older herself, often sat under the same tree, sharing the same story with younger women. She would tell them of the day she had gone to Amma in despair, and how one conversation had changed everything. She would say, the mind is like a garden. If you fill it with weeds of worry, nothing beautiful can grow. But if you plant seeds of hope, even the harshest sun cannot destroy it. Her listeners would nod, some with tears, some with smiles, because they understood life would always bring storms, but within each storm lay a chance to rise stronger. And so the story of the old lady and her lesson became part of the village's soul. The banyan tree stood as a symbol of strength and faith. Children played around it, elders rested beneath it, and travelers often stopped to admire it, unaware that it carried within its shade the spirit of a woman who had taught an entire generation how to live.
The power of positive thinking is not magic, nor is it denial of pain. It is courage. The courage to look at darkness and still believe in light. It is the choice to see blessings hidden inside struggles and to keep moving forward when everything tells you to stop. And perhaps that is the true miracle of Amma's life. She proved that one person's calm heart can heal an entire community, that a single smile, a single story can change the course of many lives. Even now, when the wind rustles through the banyan leaves, the villagers say it sounds like Amma's whisper. Think good thoughts, my child, and good will come.